this contest is a collaboration between Gertz Gallery and Community Education. We have two judges who will be presenting for this ceremony. They are Paula McCarty, who is an alum of Parkland College. She went on to obtain degrees from UIUC and Cal State University. She has taught painting at Parkland as well as being the exhibition coordinator and curator at Springer Cultural Center. She teaches classes through community education as well, and she has quite a few coming up, including one that's digital painting. So I highly recommend going to the community education website to check out her classes. Our other judge is the wonderful Laura O'Donnell, who teaches art history at Parkland College and at Eastern Illinois University. She also teaches ceramics classes in the summer, so that's terrific if you ever want to take a ceramics class at Parkland. As Terry had said, we had over 175 works submitted from about 115 entrants. So it was an incredibly wonderful exhibit to kind of go through and look and see what the judges have selected. So I'm looking forward to hearing what they have to say and about the creativity that is thriving in the Parkland College 505 district among artists aged 7 to 18. It was terrific to have such a large turnout of work, and it was heartwarming to think about the thought and effort that was put into all of these works. I particularly enjoyed reading the artist statements and hearing about what the artists were thinking about and some of their challenges and triumphs. So without further ado, I'm going to hand this over to the judges, Paula and Laura. Please take it away.
Well, we would like to thank the show's organizers and especially the students who submitted works and their parents, their guardians, their teachers, and everyone else who supports them in their artistic endeavors. So it was very exciting for us to see the work of young artists and to see what they are thinking about. We didn't adhere to any one standard when we were determining which works we would receive awards. But there were two important criteria that we considered, and those were technical skill, so how well something was made, and then also creativity. And then we thought, if in a tiebreaker situation, as technical skills can be taught, so if we needed to make a judgment, we opted for work that was more imaginative when the two were, up against each other, so to speak. So we want to stress that the awards that we're presenting tonight, they are just the opinion of two people that were made over the course of one day. So while winning awards is nice, the most important thing is to keep on making art. So now I'm going to share the screen so that we can see who the award winners are. The 7 to 10-year age group had many submissions, and they used themes such as nature, animals, and people.
So we're starting with the honorable mentions, and this work by Noah. We really like the use of analogous colors, which are colors close on the color wheel of the fall trees against this dark background. He has a lot of circular mark making that's repetitive in the stars and the moon, and then again in the trees. And we really liked how this road kind of leads you into the painting, and then the fence that takes you around the landscape keeps you in the painting. And we just thought it was really nice.
Whereas Noah paints a version of nature, Liliana Kelly's collage focuses on saving our natural world. Her predominant blue and green colors reflect those of the natural world, and the way she has collaged the images around the circular shape in the center draws our eye around the work. So the first figure that caught my eye was this giraffe, and it has this curving neck to it. And I like the fact that she thought about where to put this, and that the giraffe's neck curves and swirls around just like the painting, the sky in the painting behind it by Vincent van Gogh. And then there's also the curving of the goat or sheep's horns here. And then that kind of curves down into these figures. And so there's this circular shape all the way around it. And to me, that has this feeling like of the interconnectedness of our natural world. So I thought this was, and Paula did too, we thought that this was very well put together and very well thought about.
And this dog by Abigail, we really like the use of line and shape, and she has little hairs on the chin of the dog here, which are really nice. But she treats the dog a little differently than she does the clouds that are outlined. The dog, she kind of is using line here and there, and that's really nice. And then the shape of the ear and more contrast near the face of the dog works really well. There's a slight curvature in the collar that I think is works pretty well also.
Then while subject matter, so what is depicted, is important, also how it is made is important as well, or maybe even more important. So we like both Abigail's dog, which looks very calm, but when we look at Avery Dunn's husky, it looks very energetic to me because it has been painted with these purplish brush strokes that are kind of radiate out around the dog. And then there's the jagged lines that are around the face, and then this very spontaneous brushwork in here. It makes me feel like this dog is a dog that's ready to play. It's not ready for his nap yet. And then speaking of energy and expressive painting, we both loved Heather Gillespie's self-portrait because, as she says, it shows all of the feelings. And I like the way that she outlines the head to create this definition between the very washy watercolors that blend into each other with kind of the spontaneous colors all around.
And it was nice to see some sculptural work. Joseph here did the Eiffel Tower, which was really well thought out, we thought, and well constructed. And I really particularly like the detail at the base. There's an arched doorway at the bottom of the Eiffel Tower, or arched opening at the bottom of the tower. And the way he considered the straws, positioning them so they created that arc, I thought that attention to detail was really nice. And just a really nice piece, Joseph.
So we have awarded third place in the 7 to 10-year-old category to Edward Zhang. I like it because of its very graphic quality and the way that he has, created these repeating forms with the noodles, and then he breaks that up with the lettuce that's peeking out of the bowl here. There's also repeated forms on the bowl. Paula, do you want to say something?
Yeah, those repeated forms kind of show up in the objects that are in the noodles, which is really nice. And this is a very flat image. And I think the colors that dominate are the primary palette of red, yellow, and blue, which I think works really well. I mean, we do get a little red and green in there, but I think the colors work really well. And just the flatness kind of makes us focus on the noodles more, as it had, as opposed to having been rendered like in a three-dimensional way. Anyway, this is just really nice.
And Anna Yim's bunny is our second place winner. And this is such a sweet drawing that it has, technically it's very, very well done.
Yeah, the beautiful texture on the bunny. You just feel like you could just feel that fur of the bunny. And there's a very subtle sense of light, which I think works really well. And I feel like she even captured how bunnies are very still and frozen sometimes when you catch them or look at them. And it's just really very sweet.
Anaya Hunter's drawing is our first place winner. It reflects both a great deal of imagination as well as skill and design. I love the way that she talks about this, that she was thinking about taking a walk at night, but then seeing butterflies at night and thinking, what are they doing out there? So the way that the butterflies appear to be flying around her, but also that they are on her as well. And then we have the moon that's out at night. I like the way she's flattened some of it, but then also there's a little bit of contour to the figure.
Yeah, I think it has a lyrical quality to it. I was saying to Lisa and Laura that I feel like I could hear some music while I'm looking at this piece, some happy music. And I also really like the way she placed the bench here. The road kind of could take us out of the painting, but somehow that bench just keeps us focused on the girl, keeps us from going out of the painting. And I just think it's really delightful.
So in the 11 through 13-year-old age category, we saw a lot of portraits, landscapes, and then also nature themes as well. So this work is by Kenley Downey, and it shows a lot of imagination. We both like the way that the two sets of hands seem to frame the face from below and then also above. And then she has the halo-like veil that becomes transparent in front, but then we can see it as it circles around her. So this has very soft use of colors, and that all seems to add this element of peace and mystery to it.
This portrait by Hannah makes use of line really well against the washiness of the watercolor. And I like that she made the really big hoop earring. I think that adds balance to the piece against the face. And then, it adds some visual weight on the right. And she's also incorporating a complementary palette of red and green, which works really well.
I also like how she outlines the figure as well, that there's a washy quality to the watercolor, but then there's the strong contour lines. And then, whereas Hannah uses line to define the contours of her figure, Oz mentions that he started out with a linear doodle, and then he expanded that use of lines to create this floating kind of hybrid plant-animal spirit form. And we responded to the repetitive and the decorative quality of the lines in creating this plant form that also looks like a skirt. So the fact that it looks like both plant, but then also as you go up, it looks like a head and arms of a figure as well. And it also has this quality of floating through the air.
Yeah, I like the fact that he started with a doodle and wasn't sure where he was going with it. It's a nice aspect of it. And then I like the text at the top because I feel like that kind of keeps us in the picture looking at this wonderful natural element. And this is a really beautiful photograph by Morgan and of a park, I think, that she went to, or a camping site that she went to. And I really like the depth that she creates by putting the blades of grass or wheat in the foreground, very sharp and crisp. It really adds to the sense of depth.
There were less entrance for the 7 to 10 age group. That's why there were only 4 honorable mentions, and we'll see more in the other categories because there are twice as many people that entered in those categories. So for our awards, we chose Hannah Roderick's Venus Flytrap as 3rd place because we thought it was a very nice still life drawing that is very in some ways an ordinary scene, but also in other ways it's extraordinary because it's a Venus flytrap. Probably my favorite part of it, or 2 favorite parts of it, are the shadow with that goes back here that echoes the shape. The shadow that's under the do not touch sign. I love the details of the sticker that's here that has a UPC code on it. Then also I love the shapes of the Venus flytraps, and then the complementary colors of red and green that are there stand out against all the neutral tones that are around it.
I really like how she changed the color of the shadow. I mean, she's letting some of this background wall kind of peek through. So it's not just all one color. The shadows do change colors as they go onto different colored surfaces. And she captured that. And the other thing that I really like about this is it seems like it's a series of rectangles. Like the pot itself is very rectangular, and it's repeated by the framed picture in the upper right. And then the whole picture itself is a rectangle. So I think that's a really nice repetition of that shape.
And then there's the rectangle of the tag that's on here as well. Once you start looking, you keep finding things.
Very nice. And this beautiful tree by Jameson, we were really taken with. I really like the bird house. I think that was a nice touch. And it's just so nicely executed. I like the way the copper roots of the tree come onto the trunk. And we really like that the trunk was not like just a slab, but it actually takes on the shape of a flower that's repeated at the end of the branches in the tree.
And it's nice to see people exploring sculptural materials, and a material, like trees are made out of wood, but this is made out of metal, but it still has that organic quality that wood would have. So we thought this was a lot attempted. Then Ian Marks's self-portrait was our first place winner. We both responded to the fact that he's taking a subject that is a relatively ordinary thing for artists to do, which is a self-portrait, but he's chosen to do it in a way where he's using multiple media. So the bottom part has torn paper, so it's collage torn paper. Then it looks like there's watercolor wash. There's, not sure, one I think is colored pencils and one is oil pastels maybe.
Yeah, I think it's colored pencil and crayon.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I like how he divided it into the 4 sections, yet they all still seem to go together. And with the colored paper, inherently it's somewhat flat, but then he adds the collar, which gives it this sense of depth as it goes behind his neck.
Yeah, and I even think there is space created with this. When you add white to a color, it always cools the color and makes it recede in space. So we do get some sense of space there. I really like that. It's kind of a complementary color scheme with the orange and blue. And I just think it's really inventive and really well done, making all those different materials kind of match up as it goes from one band to the next.
And the choice to limit it just to the colors of the red color and the blue, for the most part, I think was a good choice as well. And having the darker or the more saturated red here, and then it gets less. And then down here, where for his body mass, he has the darker toned red and more saturated as well here. I like how the lines of the, where he's decided to switch media kind of lines up with his lips and then also with his forehead, and then with it, so it's these 4 important points with the clothing, the lips, the forehead. And then there's a certain amount of realistic detail that it has too. So it's combining materials that could do realism with, torn paper, which we don't typically think of that as, that seems to be more lending itself to abstraction. So.
Yeah, I also like the way he decided to kind of make his shoulders, he just kept with that band motif and didn't kind of slope them like a shoulder maybe. I think that works really well in this piece.
So current events, inner psychology, and the artist's relationship to the larger world informed many of the artworks that were submitted by the 14 through 18-year-old students. And we also see these students start to venture out using additional media, such as digital programs.
Yeah, this is a good example of a digital work by Jada. And I was saying it's hard enough to do a portrait or 2 portraits, but to do 5 in such a nice way that are very convincing. And I think those are really well done, and just the circular composition keeps our eye traveling around the piece. I think that works really well. And I just really like the message here of beauty and empowerment and diversity. So I really like the message, and I also like the way she decided to crop the figures. I think that works pretty well.
And Maggie Neff has also drawn a figure, but hers is seems to be expressing an inner world of complex emotions. So she is using the secondary color palette, so oranges, greens, purples, and that helps draw, that along with the figure's long neck, helps draw our eye to the figure's face. And then the abstracted background is also important, that there's these shapes that are here, and so they complement the figure rather than competing with it. Another thing that I found compelling was the sideways gaze of the eyes, that it also tends to, it expresses complex emotions. And we also had some photographs that were very well done as well. This one by Grace Kaler is very well done for its composition and depicting the natural world. That it also is dealing with the times that we're in. A year and a half ago, a nature scene meant something different to me than it does now. Now there's this sense of freedom in terms of looking at nature, this idea of getting outside and doing things. I also like the way this is composed, that there's a certain asymmetry to it, that the tree is not directly in the center, but it's off to the side. And then the lines where this meets up with the water, and then this line draws our eye back in. I also like the parallel of the concrete here with the sunshine on the water.
And this painting by Kayla used blurred photography as an inspiration, and it just kind of really takes away all the detail, which forces us to focus on maybe mood or emotion. And we really get a sense of the coolness of the areas in shadow and the warmth of the sky. It looks like it's late in the day. And because she was working from a photograph that was then blurred and then turned into a painting, it was like almost twice removed from its source. And there's just, it was really very well done.
And we also liked Alyssa Pankow's photograph that she titled Reflection. And to me, there's the nice formal qualities to this. So the fact that it's symmetrical, in this case, I think adds to the photograph. And there's a certain repetition of formal shapes that there's, the first thing that captures my eye is this big circle in the center, but then we also have these little circles that in the reflection of this convex mirror. And then there's a curving here. Then overall, there's this curved shape that goes around that. So it's, at first glance, you see one thing, but the more you look, you can start seeing formal shapes that, that it is perfectly symmetrical. And it also draws our eye in to see, it makes me, first, seeing that shape, but then wondering, what is laying behind that. And then we can, see the people that are back in here, even the photographer probably, which is always kind of a nice thing when you see the artist, kind of in the artwork, but not dominating it. There's also, I talked about the repetition of circles, but there's also the repetition of rectangles with the bricks. And I like how everything gets less in focus as, into the distance.
Yeah, and this card by Drew is a scratch piece, and I thought the detail and the perspective were pretty amazing, and the sense of light on the window and the hood of the car, I think, works pretty well. And I just thought that it was pretty remarkable.
We also like this other scratchboard drawing by Sydney Marshall. And this one has, a different feeling to it. It's a very quiet, dainty quality that is enhanced by the delicate quality that you can get with Scratchboard when you are starting with a dark black surface and then scratching through to get the highlights. And so by its nature, the Scratchboard does give you the dark negative space around it unless you decide to change that.
This piece by Reese, I'm a poet there. This work by Reese is really dynamic, and it's kind of broken up into 3 triangles, or actually maybe even more if you look. It's maybe the triangles of the chopsticks themselves. That could be a total of 5 triangles, but it's a very dynamic composition. And she was trying to create the magical chaos of this meal, what the meal entails. And I think she really captured that well. The background, she treated really nicely with the addition of the shapes. They don't overpower the subject, but they add a nice complexity to the piece that I think works really well. And you can almost feel the steam coming off of that dumpling or whatever it is in that hot pot. But I just think it's a very, very dynamic composition and really well done.
Okay, then our place winners for this category. In 3rd place, we have Hannah Looning's Portrait of Isaac. And this was another Scratchboard piece. We just thought that she really captured, she has kind of both technique as well as imagination going on here, that in terms of using a portrait as a starting point, but then investing that with a certain spirit or emotion.
Yes, it has a very meditative gaze, and I really like the way that calm, peaceful look of this person contrasts with the very curly, circular movement of the hair. I think that works really well, and I feel like this, it's just really well executed and really well done. I love the texture on it.
And I think this one too, we talked about negative space with the other Scratchboard pieces. This one is using more, it's using the negative space just as the background, and it appears to me as though this figure is emerging out of darkness, which is in part is due to the Scratchboard technique, but I think that it's used very well.
And yeah, these pieces are both by Veronica, and the one on the right was the award piece, but we thought they were both very, very strong pieces compositionally. And the one on the left uses this beautiful diffused light that I think works really well. And I like the fact that the crayons were added to give a little bump of color to an otherwise two-tone painting, and how they kind of direct us into the painting.
Then I like it with the painting of the still life of the peppers and the green onions. I like how she has a perspective where she's looking down on the objects, which is a less expected perspective. And I like how this is parallel to the plane, but then you have another green shape over here. And then she has these 2 little red peppers which help balance it out. So you need the 2 red peppers here for the composition to make sense. I also like how the red is a complementary color to the green, so it helps accentuate that. And then also, just the decisions she made are absolutely right. Like with the pepper here, we have the green, and then there's a little bit of red on the pepper. She could have chosen to put the red over here on this side, but the work would not have been nearly as strong if it was placed that way. I think by having the red toward the outside of the pepper was a very good choice, because it helps to balance out these red peppers here. And then also the little bits of reddish brown that's in here.
I really like the variety of shapes in this piece. And I also like the light to dark from the lower right corner to the upper left corner. I think that's really nice.
And then our choice for first place was Amelia Case and her drawing Ghost Town. This was a very hard decision to make because there were the paintings that we just looked at were very excellent too. But we thought with this work, it has so much detail in it, as well as expressing the time that we're living through. So I love the details of, the linear perspective that draws us through, like all of the details in the brickwork, but I especially love the reflections in the windows.
Yeah,
and the fact that the figures are sitting 6 feet apart wearing masks.
Yeah, the texture is amazing in this piece, and just the attention to detail. And this is very complex. I mean, it's just very complex piece, but just so beautifully done. We get a variety of shapes and sizes within the walkway there, and it's almost a symmetrical piece aside from the tree and the figures. A series of rectangles, and each one, you just keep traveling around the piece because everything's handled just a little differently and very interesting.
So that's all we have to say. We just thank everybody for submitting works, and we want to encourage you to keep making art. And I'm going to turn it back over to Lisa Costello.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much. Laura and Paula, that was so insightful to hear what you had to say. I know that everybody was kind of curious, how someone goes and judges an exhibition like this, especially when the work is so terrific. So thank you so much. I wanted to say thank you to Cindy Smith, who was our tech help, and of course Terry for helping me with all of this collaborating. And Laura and Paula, I know you put in so much time in selecting the work, so I really appreciate that. And of course, thank you to all the art teachers and parents, and of course the artists that made the work. I wanted to say, if you're interested in taking art classes, Paula McCarty is teaching through Community Ed some painting classes, so that'll be terrific. If you're interested in taking like a portrait class, and then there's also one on problem paintings, and then there's a digital painting class, so pretty exciting. And it was really wonderful. So thank you so much, everybody.